My mom's been here and helping me out around the house. And I'm sitting in here, I'm prepping everything. I reach over to grab something off my desk, and on the way back, I spill my entire cup. I just yelled out. My mom comes running, and she's like, "What happened? Are you okay?" And I said, "I just spilled the tea." And she goes, "Oh, now I got to play with that all day."
Literally. Look at us. Sometimes I don't know what is worse though, because I don't generally dress nicely when I go to work. Because, children smear their snot on my pants and they cough on me and they spit up on me and all those lovely things. So I'm not going to wear my Gucci to work, okay? It was Valentine's Day. And so I was like, okay, I'm going to do all white and then I'm going to have like red lips, and I had these red glasses that I was going to wear. So I was like, okay, that's the vibe that we're going through. The day that I decided to wear my white pants was the day that one of the kids, while I was feeding them, decided to throw all their food on top of me. And I was just like...
Was it a red sauce too?
No, it was worse. It was like that pumpkin, so it stains.
I'm so sorry.
So that was super fun. So I was like, never again. I'm like wearing nice clothes to work again.
I feel like these experiences just go right into your books. Like, you can have a character who's like the best character in the world, and they're just having an off day and everything is happening to them. Everything.
100%. It's like today. So for the past 3 days, I haven't had electricity at home. And so I'm sitting here and I'm like, ooh, well, we have to record. So I had to go all the way to my friend's house to come and record. Only to realize I didn't bring like my webcam with me to record. So then I had to try to figure out how to log into my phone, and then I had to charge things, and I was just like, who saw?
No.
But we're here and we are ready to jump into this episode.
I meant to be drinking cherry tea today. There's only like this much left, but that's what I meant to be drinking today.
Cool. Well, I will raise you a passion fruit and cherry tea. So one of us will have a good tea.
Yes.
Let's do this episode. Hey, Hal, let's go. Welcome to Tea and Tales. We are so happy to have you here with us. I'm Madeleine Al.
And I'm Sarah Sampson. We especially want to thank Molly McCarthy and Carolyn P. Frudenthal for joining in each week and for joining us on our social media as well. This week, our episode is about the differences between picture books and graphic novels. And to help us with this discussion, we have brought KT literary agent Adria Goetz to join us. So please welcome Adria.
Welcome, Adria. Thank you so much for being on Tea and Tales. We are so super happy to have you here with us today and for taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us today about picture book and graphic novels, because I know absolutely nothing about it.
That's what I'm here for. Thanks for having me.
Can you tell us a little bit about how you came into agenting and why you love picture books and graphic novels?
I feel like I just grew up a bookworm and knew that I wanted to work in publishing in some capacity. And so in college, I basically applied for every publishing or publishing adjacent internship that I could find. I originally thought I wanted to be an editor, but then I happened to get an internship at a local literary agency. And when I showed up for the first day, there was like this auction going on for this YA book. And it was like the energy was like electric, and it was so exciting to watch. And I was like, I think actually this is what I want to do. This is really exciting. I think I love picture books and graphic novels so much just because I'm a very visual person and I love art. I get a lot of energy out of visual projects. I found as I started representing them that it energizes me, and that's always a great thing.
That's so fantastic, because I feel like an agent really needs to fall in love with what they're doing and have that energy. Let's jump into about what are graphic novels and what are picture books. What makes them fundamentally different from each other?
Yeah, so I would say there's some fundamental differences in subject matter, in page count, and in illustration style sometimes. Because paneled pages are becoming more popular, like a more popular format, there are some books out there where the lines between the two can get a little blurry. Like I think there's this darling book called The Camping Trip by Jennifer Mann that is 56 pages long, which is pretty long for a picture book, but pretty short for a graphic novel. And it's about a girl going camping for the first time. I feel like it's on the cusp of graphic novel, but I still think it falls into the picture book category. And that's because the subject matter is like pretty simple and low stakes. It's not grappling with big questions the way that graphic novels can. The page count is long for a picture book, but because it's a novelty project, it can kind of get away with it. And then the illustration style has a sweeter sensibility than we typically see for a graphic novel. If it was like 120 pages and it was about a girl going camping for the first time and her parents are going through a divorce and then she kisses a boy for the first time or something like that, then I think it would fall into graphic novel territory. I think of page count, subject matter, illustration style for kind of the core differences.
Okay, I love how you not only talked about the kind of style in the picture that differentiates the two of them, but also the word count, because I think a lot of times authors don't realize how important word count is when you do submit your work to an agent, because you can't have like a 20,000 word picture book and you can't have like a 1,000-word graphic novel. So what does a strong picture book manuscript need that a graphic novel proposal doesn't necessarily, and vice versa?
For picture books, if you're an author, you just need a really well-developed, polished text manuscript. If you're an author illustrator, you need a strong, polished dummy, which is a document that has the illustrations for the book already sketched out. Typically, it's just sketches, and then you have a handful of full-color, final-level illustrations to show your style and to show your skill and just your overall creative vision for the book. And then for a graphic novel proposal, you typically need a script, 10 to 15 sample pages of full color, final level art. You need character designs, character description, prompt titles, synopsis. Yeah, those are kind of the main components. So graphic novel packages are a much more involved endeavor.
Once you've got the proposals and you've accepted a client and you're bringing all of their things together, do you approach pitching a picture book differently than pitching a graphic book to editors, and how?
In a certain sense, every pitch is going to be centered around the same ideas of like highlighting why this book is awesome, why it's gonna connect with its market, why it's gonna sell well. Like that's what most pitches kind of boil down to. One thing I'd say though is when it comes to picture books, something that agents and editors always have front of mind is the idea that adults are buying the product for the child. So we have to win over the adult first. And that, like, for better or worse, goes into acquisitions decisions, goes into the way that an agent pitches a book, into how a publisher positions a book. When it comes to like middle grade and young adult graphic novels, they're still books for kids, so adults are often the ones buying them, but those readers have more agency at that age. They're, grabbing the book off the shelves for themselves at the library, at school. If a mom takes her child to the bookstore and says you can, pick out one book, or here's $20, you can do with it what you want, they have more of a say in that decision. So I would say I'm thinking a little bit less about the adult consumer when it comes to pitching graphic novels than I am when it comes to pitching picture books.
That is so interesting that you say that, because I never would have thought about this. I mean, I am a cover person myself, and I read romance for the majority of time. So naturally, the cover kind of draws my attention, but I never thought of the adult kind of like picks the book for the child to read generally. So that is very interesting when you say that. So if you pitch your either graphic novel or picture book author or illustrator to an editor, have you ever had a situation where an author / illustrator came to you and they're like, this is my work, both the pictures and the text, and you actually had to tell them like, no, you can't have this illustration, like we actually have to get someone else? Or has that not happened before?
I don't know if I've ever had that happen before. I think I probably just wouldn't take the project on if I felt that way. I don't think I've ever been in that situation before. Very often an author illustrator, they'll have one strength over the other. They'll be a stronger illustrator than they are a writer. or vice versa. But I would say if someone needs help with writing, I feel like that's something that I can help with. If someone's illustrations aren't as strong, I can't really like guide their hand as they draw. I'm more likely to sign a really talented, strong illustrator that needs a little help with writing. That's something I feel like I can help them navigate.
Okay. That's good to know. Not that I'm a drawer at all. Like, I can do like stick figures. I think that would be like my number one selling point. Be like, yep, that's the new children's book. Stick figures. Yay!
Well, it's funny you say that because there's this picture book, and I think the title is I Can Only Draw Worms. And it's just like every page is like basically like a stick figure worm. And like that's like the shtick of the book is like, this is the only thing I can draw. So it is what it is.
Very unique. It's very unique. Going back to the business part of picture book versus graphic novels, like how do advances, production costs, and overall financial risk compare between the two of them?
Okay, so if we're talking about author illustrators, typically the advance for a graphic novel is going to be higher. It should be higher always because it is so much more work than a picture book. It's not always the case though. Sometimes they can have a fairly comparable advance to a picture book, just depending on a list of factors, the publisher, the author's platform, things like that. But even in the instances where the graphic novel advance is technically higher, once you average out like how many hours that the creator put into the project and how far spread out the payments are, it often doesn't really amount to that much more if you're thinking of it as like an hourly wage. Graphic novels are just a tremendous amount of work, so much so that creators often have to hire out some of the process. So they'll hire a colorist to color in the inked pages, or they'll hire a letterer to add in all of the text to the word bubbles, things like that, because it's such a massive undertaking. And then in terms of production costs, graphic novels are so incredibly expensive to produce. It's a lot of ink. They tend to have really thin profit margins for publishers, unfortunately, which is a bummer, especially for middle grade and young adult readers, because they're like insatiably hungry for graphic novels. Like every school librarian I talk to tells me that their graphic novel section, like the shelves are completely empty because all of the books are checked out. So like kids love them and they churn through them, but they're expensive for the publisher to produce, and they're also expensive for the author to produce, like in terms of like they're mentally expensive, they can kind of take over your life, they can be physically expensive. Like a lot of graphic novel creators will have issues with carpal tunnel and wrist pain, and they'll have to take breaks to rest. I've known people who have had to get different surgeries done or wear a wrist brace or things like that, which is why it's important for agents to always build in as much wiggle room to production schedules as possible so that they have room to breathe and take breaks and rest their body. So graphic novels are just a whole thing, basically.
Wow, I never even thought about all of those details for the author themselves. Like I get strained in my wrist just from typing my adult novels, you know, so I can't imagine having to go from the keyboard and then to drawing. When you are looking for people who are giving you their queries and things, do you prefer somebody who is in the graphic novels who is also the illustrator, or do you not worry about that because you know I'll hire an illustrator is the production cost like gonna be the same and all of that?
I would say I exclusively accept submissions for graphic novels that are author illustrators. I have represented graphic novel text scripts, but it's always been like a pre-existing client writing one. I have this client, her name is Tina Cho, and she has this beautiful graphic novel called The Other Side of Tomorrow. And it's inspired by these North Korean refugees and this network of safe houses that kind of helps people flee North Korea. Before she signed with me, she wrote it as a picture book text, and she brought it to her critique partners, and they were like, there's a lot here to squeeze into a picture book. Maybe you should expand this into a middle grade novel. And so she did. And then she signed with me for a different project. And then she eventually shared this manuscript with me. And I was like, this is a really cool story, but I think it's not working in the current format. And I think like, would you be open to exploring this as a novel in verse? So she completely rewrote it as a verse novel. It was stunning. And we took it out on submission. And then an editor at HarperCollins was like, what if it was a graphic novel in verse? So this is just like a testament to have an open mind about your like writing career, your plans for a project. I did not know I was shopping a graphic novel script, and that's just like how it panned out. That's one of the instances where I was like, yeah, I technically represented a graphic novel script. But more often than not, when I'm sending a graphic novel out, it's by an author illustrator.
I just love that you said this, because I mean, here Sarah and I are sitting and we're just like la-di-da-di-da, we're writing our books, we're world building. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, all these graphic novels and picture book people are like doing all these million other things, and I'm like, shoo, okay. I love that. That is so cool. And it just kind of goes to show you each writer's journey is different, and that is why it's so important also to pick the right agent and for the agent to pick the right client, because you are going to walk a journey together, and you're going to have to, I almost want to say, make compromises and be open-minded, as you say. Which kind of brings me to the publisher, where they were like, would you mind changing this? Have you seen publishers be more selective in one category more than the other recently, or do you feel it's kind of pretty much the same?
It feels like publishers are becoming more selective in both categories, but particularly in graphic novels. Or, you know, I should preface this with every agent kind of has their own experience of a market. I've had years where I've been like, I'm calling up my agent friends and I've been like, I'm not selling anything. And they've been like, okay, good luck, like hang in there. And then I've had years where like I'm selling, like book deals are just falling from the sky. And like those same agent friends are like, I'm not selling anything. Are you selling anything? And so it's like we all kind of experience the market in different ways and like have ebbs and flows. The way my list is currently ebbing and flowing is I'm having success with picture books, although it is notably more competitive than it was just a few years ago. And then graphic novels, I'm like kind of struggling to place right now. Although I have a couple in the pipeline that I'm really hopeful about. But yeah, that's kind of my current experience.
I'd like to ask, just for clarification for our audience, anybody who might be listening, be like, oh, but I'm a picture book person, but I'm not an artist. Do I need to learn how to be an artist? That's me. I'm in that boat. I cannot draw more than like a mountain. So what would you say is the difference between why most people are okay with picture books and young children's books writers not being the artist versus a graphic novelist also being the illustrator?
I think that in large part, it's because graphic novels are such an undertaking. Sometimes when people sit down to write a graphic novel script, they don't fully understand what is capable for a page to contain. So they'll sit down and they'll write a 200-page graphic novel script, or at least they think they have. And then they share it with an illustrator who's like, I can't cram all of that into one page. This is actually like a 300-page graphic novel script. And so I think when it comes to picture books, it's just kind of easier to contain things, especially because we have these word count benchmarks that we give picture book writers. Like we always say that like 500 words is the gold standard magical picture book word count number for fiction picture books. We don't necessarily have the same sort of like framework for graphic novels. So you can sit down and write a 500 word picture book and be like, yeah, this is like more or less going to fit into like a 32 or 36 page picture book. But we don't necessarily like know how to do that for graphic novels. It's just a little bit more nebulous. And also a lot of graphic novel editors aren't actually open to working on just a graphic novel script. So they'll tell us like, I'm looking for graphic novels, but it must be an author illustrator. We don't necessarily hear that on the picture book side. Some editors will be like, I prefer to work with an author illustrator, but they'll still accept picture book text submissions. So that's another hurdle as well.
Well, this is a two-parter because, first of all, I complain all the time when I have to write like a query letter and I only have like 350 words to do my query letter. Yet picture book artists or writers, they have 500 words and they have to write an entire novel. Like, kudos to
Yep.
them. And then secondly, when you have picture book authors that come to you and they query you and you sign with them, do you go out and find them illustrators, or do they have to go out and find illustrators, or how would you approach it?
So typically I just pitch the text manuscript to the publisher. Once the publisher acquires it, they then hire an illustrator. I negotiate a consultation in the author's contract so that they're a part of that process. So like the publisher will send them, here are 4 or 5 illustrator options. Tell us your favorites, or like rank your favorites. So they are able to weigh in at that stage. And then they'll also be able to weigh in at like the sketches and the full color illustrations, so they can give their 2 cents. Although I always encourage clients in that situation to try to only give feedback on things that are like objectively wrong. Like, that character is supposed to be holding a tennis ball, not a football. Not like that shirt should be red instead of blue, because that's how I always imagined her to be wearing a red shirt. Like things like that. Just because you want to make sure there's like plenty of space for the artists to do their own thing.
So this is just a me question because I don't know the answer, and maybe some of our listeners would like to know as well. But you talked about like graphic novels taking so much longer because drawing takes much longer, and the writing, there's more word count that you have to write for your graphic novel. Does it take longer for a graphic novel to be published than for a children's novel to be published?
Yes, definitely. I've worked on graphic novels that have taken like 5 years to publish, but I would say like typically like 3 years is kind of the average production schedule for a graphic novel, versus like middle grade novel usually takes like 2 years or less. Yeah, on average.
Okay. And when you have a picture book author, when you talk to them, if you want to sign a deal with them, do you tell them, okay, because this is a picture book, which kind of means it is a shorter novel, like you expect them to write like 3, 4, 5 novels in a year, or do you go at the pace of the author?
So it's impossible to go at the pace of a picture book author because they write a new manuscript every few weeks. So that's actually like a big reason why a lot of querying authors express frustration that agents will have on their manuscript wish list that they're not accepting submissions from picture book authors, or they prefer to work with author illustrators. But it's because we can really only maintain a certain number of people. So it's not that we don't want to work on more picture book texts. It's just that we can't keep up. And so when I sign a new picture book author, that's like a big part of our initial conversation, is like setting expectations, because I think a lot of them think, oh, my agent's going to shop like a new picture book every month. Like I'm going to shop 12 picture books a year. And it's like, well, it's probably not going to be that. It's probably going to be like 2 a year, maybe 3 if things go quickly. It just kind of depends. And it also kind of depends on how widely you want to shop a picture book. If you really want to have a, no stone left unturned approach, that's going to take a longer time to shop. So I wish that I could move faster than I can. But when you work with so many picture book authors, it's a constant sort of like musical chairs. Like whenever an editor's desk opens, I'm like, okay, I have to wait a respectable amount of time. And then I have like 3 other picture books that I want to send them next once I hear back from them on ones. Yeah, it's a dance. It's a balancing act.
So what kind of common mistakes do you see in writers that are trying to make that shift from picture book to graphic novels that they can watch out for?
When it comes to writers, a lot of it is like I said earlier, they kind of overestimate how much can happen on a page. Really like studying graphic novels and reading them closely to kind of gauge how much an illustrator can pack into one page is like an important thing. And also making sure that the illustration notes they have in their script aren't too bossy. They again like allow the illustrator to come and add their own vision to the project and don't feel like they're being like micromanaged. And then when it comes to author illustrators making that shift from picture book to graphic novels, there tends to be a learning curve when it comes to illustration style. So you really need to make sure that it's going to appeal to the age that you're creating for. And sometimes it can kind of be tough to shed those sweeter picture book sensibilities.
So if a debut creator came to you and they are kind of unsure which format they should pursue, and if you disregard the word count, if you disregard like what kind of pictures they are drawing, what kind of questions would you ask them to help them get a clearer view of which genre they should pursue rather than the other?
I typically ask them, like, does it have to be a graphic novel? Like, is that the only possible format for this story? Like, is there no way you can be talked out of going the graphic novel route? Because when you sign up to do a graphic novel, you really have to be all in. They burn people out. If you talk to someone who just completed a graphic novel, like, the light has kind of gone out of their eyes a little bit. It's a behemoth project and it takes over your life for years. And if you want to climb that mountain, like, amazing, by all means. But if you're like, I'd rather have more time to explore this as a picture book because I have this other project I want to develop that I don't want to put on pause for 3 years, then that's amazing too. So it's just all about what your priorities are and what type of commitment that you're looking to sign up for. But occasionally I'll have clients that will come to me with a project idea and they're like, I'm not really sure what this is. And sometimes it's really obvious and immediate to me what it's going to be. Like, the subject matter feels more like a graphic novel to me, or it feels like there's just too much story to squeeze into a 32-page picture book format. But then sometimes it does kind of require a little bit of exploration. And I had this happen recently with a client where she was like, I have this idea. I don't know yet if it's going to be like a picture book or a graphic novel. And she told me about it, and I thought that it could exist in both spaces. There was kind of a way to age up or age down the concept. And so I was like, well, if you could go either way, like, I'm having more luck in the picture book market right now. So let's begin with having you try it as a picture book manuscript, and we'll see how it feels and how it reads, and we'll go from there. So she wrote it. She sent it to me, and I was like, girl, you have multiple subplots. You have this whole vibrant cast of characters who all have their own, like, individual arcs. Like, this is a graphic novel, and you would have to cut so much of this to squeeze it into a picture book arc. And, like, if you want to do that, if you want to simplify things, you can. But I think this is a graphic novel. And she was like, I think it is too. All of a sudden, like, she had all of this room to expand things and explore, and it just, like, poured out of her. And it was like you'd taken, like, the shackles off her feet so she could, run or fly. And so that was a really exciting thing, to be like, this is something that is opening all these creative doors for her. So yeah, sometimes you just kind of need to play around with it a little bit and see what feels freeing to you and what feels like limiting to you.
I love how you work with your clients to develop these ideas and to get them into the form that's going to work for them the best. As a new querying author, it's a little bit scary to be putting together that query letter and to think, am I putting the right genre on this? Am I pitching this right? Did I write this correctly? And I'm doing the best that I can on my own. Do you ever read a query and think, oh, they're pitching it as a picture book, but this would actually make a really good graphic novel? And does that make you want to turn them away? Or is it more like the idea is what you're looking for and you'll open that conversation with them if you love their writing?
Yeah, I would say I have more of a, like, openness to explore and develop with pre-existing clients. Just to be totally honest, I'd say once a submission crosses my desk or lands in my query pile, the creator is, they've already picked a lane, and, like, more often than not, I feel like they've correctly chosen the lane. And so I would say I can't think of an instance where I've encouraged someone in my query pile to make that leap, because I don't yet know what they're capable of or what they're up for. But when it's with a pre-existing client, I feel more of, like, an openness to a little bit more exploration.
Is there anything that you would like to say to our listeners that we haven't talked about at all about picture books or graphic novels?
When it comes to picture books, we also have to keep in mind that picture books really need a lot of marketing entry points in order for them to sell. I was actually just recently talking to an editor at a Big Five publisher, and she was saying that in order for her to bring a picture book to an acquisitions meeting, she feels like she needs to see at least 3 marketing entry points in the picture book. So, like, 3 different reasons that a person would buy the book. So sometimes that's like there are themes of, like, acceptance and inclusion in this story. There's a father-daughter element to this story, and so, like, this will sell well around Father's Day. And then sometimes it's like dragons. Like, Dragons is the marketing entry point. Because you know what? People love dragons. Same with like unicorns or mermaids or anything that's like someone sees the book and they're buying it because there's a dragon in it, because there's a mermaid in it, and they know that their like grandchild or their niece loves those things. I always encourage picture book creators to think about marketing entry points when it comes to the picture books that they prioritize on their querying journey, because that's a big part of finding an agent as a picture book creator. You have so many manuscripts, you have so many projects that you've written, and you're looking for someone to represent, your body of work. So it's like, which one do you prioritize? And so I always encourage people to like lead with the manuscripts that have as many of those marketing entry points as possible.
Well, thank you so much, Adria, for coming on to our podcast and for talking about this topic, because we really don't know anything about this, and now I feel like I am super smart right now. Before we say goodbye to you, can you please just share with us who your literary agency is and what you are looking for in picture books and graphic novels?
So my literary agency is KT Literary. Our agency motto is nice people, great books, which I think sums us up well. We love to do business in a really friendly way, but we also work on some incredible books. And I'm looking for, the full list of what I'm looking for is picture books, middle grade novels, graphic novels of all ages. So middle grade, young adult graphic novels. And then I'm also like mostly looking to expand my list in adult fiction, particularly in like a few specific spaces, like anything that is, I say, like tinged with magic, so like magical realism or cozy fantasy or really like grounded stories that have magic in them. Upmarket book clubby fiction, mysteries, thrillers, and romance. That's like really where I'm looking to expand my list right now. And I love stories that are whimsical and fun and light and magical and feel like a warm hug, feel like a, cozy cup of tea for your heart, like that type of vibe. I'm looking for tea and tales, basically, is what I'm saying.
I'm going to make that our slogan from now on. Wait, side note though, you literally said graphic novels for young adult, middle grade, and adult. I didn't know there were like 3 sections of graphic novels. Like, how do you differentiate between those? Because does adult graphic novels have a larger word count than young adult or middle grade? And like, do the type of illustration that they use differ, or how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, adult, sometimes the page count is longer, sometimes it's not. It's mostly actually the character ages. So like adult novels are going to be about adult characters, and like the themes and subject matter can be a little older. Sometimes they can be spicy. Like adult graphic novels can really be a whole lot different in subject matter than middle grade and young adult. So page count, yeah, it runs longer, but they can be pretty comparable actually to like a YA page count.
Okay, and then this idea just formed in my head. What's the difference between a graphic novel and a...
I think it's mostly kind of in like production design. Like comic books don't typically have like a spine to them. They tend to be more like mass market, cheap to produce, like that type of thing. I don't know if I can explain it more technically than that.
We've never dug into comic books, and I do feel like they're more of a magazine feeling in a comic book.
Yes.
And for our listeners, if you are looking for more on Adria, we will have her website in the show notes. It is a brilliant website, by the way. I adore how it's set up. It's real clear how to find things and figure out what it is that you're looking for. We will also have a link to KT Literary, so you can look up how to query her and all of that from there as well. So thank you so much for joining us, Adria. I learned so much today.
Good. Thanks for having me.
We like to keep things short here on Tea and Tales. Get your fingers back on the keyboard and your pens back on paper.
And if you like what we are doing here, if you love the amazing guests that we have on and the topics that we are discussing, go follow us on Instagram, Threads, and Facebook at Tea and Tales Podcast, and on Twitter /X and TikTok at Podcast Tea Tales. And then go to that purple icon on your device, go to Spotify, go like, go comment, go share, so that you can help the algorithm for us and help us go up, some moment.
Join us next week where we get to talk about children's book illustration with Kama Luanda. And also, make sure you get onto our website and sign up for our newsletter. This is the quickest and fastest place where you will find the link to our blurb review drawing with Jessie Cuniff. And also keep an eye on those social medias for that link as well. Happy writing!
Bye!